What if the Demon King was bored for 1,000 years and discovered anime? Demon King Krad, undefeated, unconquered, and completely, utterly bored. No hero could challenge him, no battle could excite him, so he did the only reasonable thing. He became an otaku. Then one day, 2 kids showed up. The hero's journey is supposed to end with defeating the Demon King. But what if the Demon King was the one writing it all along? The story opens by describing itself as the most typical story ever, set on the peaceful Dominion continent threatened by the Demon King, a fearsome being of immense power. Heroes rise to challenge the Demon King, and eventually one defeats him, restoring peace. A classic fantasy setup. We're then introduced to Hero Justice, a confident, muscular warrior who confronts the weary Demon King. The Demon King, clearly having faced countless heroes before, tiredly asks, "Which number hero are you this time?" Suggesting he's been through this cycle repeatedly and can barely keep track anymore. Justice declares he will defeat the Demon King, wielding his sword. He activates a powerful ability called Judgment Sword, the Judgment, unleashing a blazing golden sword while proclaiming dawn will swallow the darkness. The Demon King, however, seems impressed rather than afraid, saying, "Impressive." Justice fires back that the Demon King's arrogance is exactly why he'll lose. We're now properly introduced to the Demon King. His name is Krad. He's been around for thousands of years, and over that time, countless heroes of all types have risen to challenge him. Warriors with superior bloodlines, science-enhanced heroes, and everything in between. But none have ever defeated him. Justice is revealed to be the 326th challenger. Krad is clearly exhausted by the repetition of it all. He admits he's been waiting nearly 2,000 years for a true equal rival, and he's starting to get tired of this whole routine. He even deliberately avoided landing a fatal blow on Justice, instead giving him a brutal but survivable beating, then offering him a choice: flee and live as a coward, or stay and risk everything in a final battle. Meanwhile, we're introduced to Dominic, an underling of the Demon King's castle who is scolding Krad for ignoring him while binge-reading comics. This is the comedic twist, the fearsome Demon King's second biggest concern after his rival is human pop culture. He apparently got so absorbed in a comic series that he ignored Dominic's repeated summons, justifying it by saying a drama he recently enjoyed was an homage to it. Krad closes the scene with a backhanded compliment toward humans. Truly impressive. You, humans, suggesting a complicated, almost fond feelings toward the species he's been at war with for millennia, while also noting they haven't changed at all for thousands of years. It's a great mix of epic fantasy and dry comedy, painting Krad as a bored, ancient being who finds humans both frustratingly persistent and oddly entertaining. The story flashes back to year XXXX, an earlier time where Krad is in the middle of yet another routine hero battle. The 408th challenger, Jareel, has just been defeated. As Jareel lies dying, Krad dismissively asks what he's mumbling about, saying he's not even strong enough to deserve last words. But what Jareel says in his final moments is unexpectedly mundane and deeply human. He rambles about how he never really wanted to be a hero. He just didn't want to die pointlessly. He confesses he had a dream of becoming a movie director, quotes something poetic about the beauty of knowing when to leave, and then most importantly, sobs that before he dies, he just wanted to watch one last thing, a show called Look at Me Through the Door Crack. He even tearfully says that if he'd known he'd die without finishing it, he never would have become a hero. Krad is completely thrown off. He's confused by the weird long title, asks Jareel to repeat it, but Jareel is already dead. Back in the present, Krad is still on his castle rooftop thinking about it. He can't remember the fight itself at all. There have been too many heroes, but those bizarre last words are stuck in his head. He's genuinely puzzled, even a little haunted by them. He wonders aloud, have I really gotten that bored of waiting for my rival? It's a brilliantly funny yet oddly melancholic moment, the immortal Demon King, unbothered by thousands of battles, can't stop thinking about a dying hero's unfinished TV drama. Back in the present, Dominic is kicking himself for not stopping Krad earlier. Krad, now curious about the door crack thing that's been stuck in his head, sends Dominic on an errand to find out what it is. Dominic returns with a full report, but warns Krad up front that he'll feel pretty empty when he hears it. He explains that as human civilization advanced, they developed pop culture movies, described as a massive play created by actors, writers, musicians, and artists using advanced technology, dramas, comics, animation, and more. The mysterious long title thing the dying hero mentioned turns out to be a movie opening tomorrow in the human world. Krad's initial reaction is dismissive and a little grumpy. He grumbles that instead of getting stronger, humans are wasting time making entertainment, which is why heroes aren't improving. Dominic, ever the dutiful underling, nervously suggests maybe it's a smokescreen for building a secret weapon against Krad and offers to investigate further. Krad shuts that down. He's heard enough. After a long pause, he makes a decision that shocks Dominic completely. I'll go see it myself. Dominic absolutely loses it, sputtering that there's no need for the Demon King to go personally. But Krad is already walking away, casually telling Dominic to take good care of the castle. We get a time-skip montage showing how Krad's curiosity about human pop culture snowballed into a full obsession. What started with one movie trip turned into him actively exploring all forms of entertainment he's shown, excitedly showing Dominic an electronic device, discovering he can watch movies on it, then getting wireless earphones and diving even deeper. The narrator dryly notes that given his lifespan, Krad has officially become the being who has enjoyed pop culture the longest of anyone. Meanwhile, Dominic is at his wit's end. We see him internally monologuing about how he absolutely should have stopped Krad back when this all started. Krad, completely unbothered, is now animatedly ranting to a dead-eyed Dominic about how a beloved classic novel got a terrible live-action adaptation, the kind of pop culture grievance that any media fan would recognize. Dominic, exasperated, delivers a perfectly reasonable complaint. You're the Demon King, for heaven's sake! How can your hobby be human pop culture? Krad responds with a full intimidating villain speech reminding Dominic that he is the leader of the demons, an absolute being with the power to destroy the world, only to follow it up with a casual, let's hurry and get ready, we'll make it to the movie just in time. Dominic flatly asks, and so? What exactly are you trying to say? Making it clear the dramatic speech completely undermined itself. It's a hilarious portrait of a terrifyingly powerful ancient evil who is, at his core, just a massive pop culture nerd running late to a movie. We're also introduced to a new character, Roko, a cheerful new underling at the Demon King's castle, finishing up cleaning duties. Someone calls out to Roko, who responds eagerly, but is caught off guard by something likely seeing who's calling her. Tells Roko that they'll be heading to the human world for a while with someone called Lord Krad, and asks her to contact them immediately if anything unusual happens. They then task Roko with guarding the Demon King's castle in their absence. Roko, in her cheerful way, just smiles and sends them off with a, please be safe, both of you, internally thinking to herself that those two really have it rough. The overall tone is lighthearted and comedic, with Roko being left in charge of the castle while her superiors reluctantly head off to the human world. The scene shifts to the Grand Arena Meridium, a massive Colosseum-style venue in the human world. Krad and Dominic have disguised themselves as humans and are sitting in the stands. Krad is still grumbling and doesn't understand why they have to be here before the movie. Dominic then reveals what's really going on. He drops a surprisingly earnest and serious speech. He explains that he has spent thousands of years watching over the human world on Krad's behalf, specifically looking for a rival worthy of him. He pointedly asks Krad how many seconds it would take him to wipe out the entire arena, making the implicit point that Krad's power is so overwhelming that no hero has ever truly challenged him. That's the whole problem. That's why Dominic has brought Krad here today to watch two promising hero candidates spar. He gives his word that Krad will find something here that genuinely interests him. Krad, caught off guard by Dominic's sincerity, softens and apologizes for being dismissive, acknowledging that Dominic has been looking out for him in his own way. Krad agrees to focus on the matches. Dominic points out the first key person to watch, a young swordswoman named Riley standing on the right. Krad, barely masking his skepticism, mutters that all heroes are basically the same anyway, but he's watching. The first match is underway at the Grand Arena. Riley, Eastwood Regional Representative, faces off against Gunalo, Ascalo Regional Representative, a massive, intimidating bare-chested fighter who towers over her. Gunilo talks big, saying he'd love to go easy on a kid, but there are too many eyes watching today. Riley responds with a cool silence. From the stands, Krad and Dominic are watching in disguise and chatting like a couple of casual spectators. Krad is immediately skeptical. He wonders aloud why the representative of an entire region is just that little kid. Even Dominic, who normally defends his choices, admits he can't argue with the concern. Then the match begins, and Riley immediately shows she's something else entirely. The moment the signal is given, she launches into explosive action, sending her opponent crashing into the barrier wall with crackling lightning energy. It's fast and overwhelming, and she coolly thinks to herself, this might end faster than I thought. Meanwhile, Krad, now visibly engaged, notices they're using magic barriers to allow real blade combat safely. He muses that it's an improvement over wooden practice swords. Dominic starts agreeing and explaining further, but Krad has already tuned him out, leaning forward with his eyes narrowed, muttering, well, what's this? Clearly starting to see something genuinely interesting in Riley for the first time. It's a satisfying turning point. Krad came in dismissive and bored, but Riley is already catching his attention. Riley dominates the fight, landing precise hits on Gunhild until he's exhausted and ultimately surrenders. The crowd's reaction. The audience is shocked and skeptical. They can't believe Gunhild gave up so quickly, with some suspecting the match was rigged. Dominic explains Riley to Krad. She's been training in swordsmanship since childhood, and her defining trait is raw talent. She can learn 10 things from being taught, just one with exceptional learning speed, adaptability, and application. Given the line about having seen heroes for thousands of years, notes that Riley's finishing technique was incredibly sophisticated. She aimed at a spot where Gunhild's defensive barrier had just broken, swinging as if to cut, but only projecting, killing intent, which is an extremely advanced and dangerous technique for someone her age. The second match setup. Following Riley's quick victory, the next match is moved up. It's Troy Eastwood regional representative versus Gregory Ascalo regional representative. Gregory is already demoralized watching Gunhild lose, but steels himself with a, as long as I win, that's all that matters mentality, vowing to show he's different from the arrogant Gunhild. The match begins. Gregory immediately notices something alarming. Troy's stance and presence suggest he's about to use a technique called sword aura slash. Gregory is skeptical, thinking it must be a bluff or cheap taunt, since sword aura slash is described as a beginner's technique, simple, straightforward, and normally discarded early in training. He reasons that even if it's real, he can just sidestep it. Gregory's miscalculation. Gregory tries to stay calm and dodge, confident the basic technique can't hit him. However, he's shocked to find he couldn't dodge it the attack connected, despite his certainty that he'd evaded it. Troy calmly tells Gregory he never looked down on him and that he respects every opponent. The match ends with Troy declared the winner after all of Gregory's barriers are destroyed. Troy's background and defining trait. Dominic gives a full breakdown of Troy, 17 years old, and like Riley, has trained in swordsmanship since childhood. However, where Riley is defined by natural talent, Troy is defined by something completely different, effort. His learning speed is notably slow compared to prodigies like Riley, but what sets him apart is that once his swordsmanship is fully formed, the level of precision he achieves is virtually unmatched. The sword aura slash controversy. Krad interrupts Dominic's description, clearly offended at Troy being reduced to just the result of effort. He passionately corrects Dominic, pointing out that what Troy did was far more impressive than it appeared. Krad is visibly stirred for the first time in what seems like a very long time. He declares that both Riley and Troy are individuals who will eventually reach the very top, and more strikingly, that he can already see in them the seeds of someone who might become his rival or even surpass him entirely. This is a massive statement coming from someone of his caliber. Dominic, sweating nervously, quietly thinks to himself that it was a very good thing he decided to come here personally. After the match concludes, Troy spots Riley and cheerfully suggests they do a high five to celebrate. Riley, caught completely off guard by his closeness and enthusiasm, freezes up and goes beet red, barely managing to tap his hand. Troy, completely oblivious, just grins happily. When Dominic nervously stammers that Troy and Riley are just ordinary friends who were adopted by the same swordsman and trained together, Krad bursts into gleeful laughter. Because after thousands of years of consuming every kind of story imaginable, his absolute favorite genre is pure romance, and what he just watched between those two was anything but just friends. He grins and says plainly, "That's not what it looks like to me," clearly delighted by the unfolding drama in front of him. The Demon King, bored for centuries, has just found his new favorite show playing out in real life. After watching Riley and Troy's performances, both in combat and in their adorably oblivious, almost romance, Krad is absolutely lit up with excitement. He cackles gleefully, declaring that given just a few more years, a masterpiece will be born. The Demon King's dopamine finally began to flow. The green-haired boy desperately pleads with his master to wait, but Krad ignores him completely, humming contentedly about what a perfect couple they make. He even muses aloud about potential names for their future child, which infuriates the servant. Without warning, a hand lands on the boy's head, startling him. A man's voice thanks Dominic for his efforts in locating the children. The young servant remains frozen in shock, struggling to process what's happening. He stammers that he doesn't mind his lord supporting a romance, but what about the big final battle they'd planned? At this, Krad transforms into teacher mode and praises the excellent question, leaving his apprentice even more bewildered. The Demon King then unveils his grand scheme. Step 1. Support Troy and Riley's romance. Step 2, orchestrate an epic final battle between them. Step 3, enjoy the spectacle, then fake his own defeat and vanish without a trace. Finally, Step 4, observe their happy married life from the shadows. He adds with enthusiasm that if their child becomes a hero, an exciting new rivalry could emerge. The servant stands completely speechless, swallowing the insult that had been forming on his tongue. He realizes he lacks the confidence to stop his master's plans and can only pray everything works out. A voice calls out, and the Lord remarks that it makes sense for so many talented individuals to gather in one place. The ponytailed man's expression turns serious as he declares he'd suspected something, but now he's certain. The atmosphere shifts dramatically, and the green-haired boy wonders what's gotten into his lord. The servant breaks into a cold sweat, wondering how long this person had been watching them undetected. At that moment, another figure appears, someone with distinctly unfriendly features, who asks if the man before them is the ponytailed man's companion. The servant attempts to deflect using his master's alias, mentally questioning who this newcomer could be. The young woman comments on the name change, suggesting he should have chosen something cooler. Dark energy radiates from the Lord as he threatens to take one of her legs, but the ponytailed man flicks the servant's forehead, calling him an idiot. He complains that they might as well have hung a sign announcing a demon's presence, and the boy quickly apologizes. The woman then turns her attention to the Lord, asking what business the Demon King has in the human world. He dismisses her curtly, saying it's none of her concern and he has no interest in speaking with a disgraced heroine. The Lord tells her to take responsibility and make things happen quickly. The woman remains silent, observing without a word. She asks him to speak more clearly so she can understand, but he's already walking away. The young woman reflects that since he found something interesting, it likely involves. Just then, Troy and Riley appear, searching for her, and she realizes they're the something interesting Krad mentioned. She turns to them and asks what they're doing there. At that moment, Krab's words about the disgraced heroine echo in her mind, calling her master. The heroine stands speechless, uncertain how to address her students. Abruptly changing the subject, she announces she's craving something sweet. She invites them both for shaved ice, leaving them confused by her sudden shift in demeanor. She then declares that whoever arrives last will have to share their shaved ice with Troy as punishment. Meanwhile, the Demon King observes everything from a distance, wearing a satisfied smile. The servant finally asks his lord about the identity of that mysterious woman. He replies that his apprentice wouldn't know her, then reveals she was the one who trained Troy and Riley. Her name is Bly, an ancient heroine, who once appeared to defeat him a battle he should have lost. Krab explains that their fight was extraordinarily balanced, completely neck and neck. He was so thrilled to finally have a worthy rival that he fought without thinking, barely remembering the details. He only regained full consciousness near the end, when her blade grazed him. But at the last second, she turned her sword, and his injury healed easily. As a human, however, the young woman ended up in terrible condition, and his disappointment transformed into anger. Even battered and bruised, Blee refused to give up, continuing to face the Demon King with unwavering determination. He doesn't recall the exact reason, but he likely told her to recover so they could fight again someday. The green-haired boy is shocked, unable to believe what he's hearing. He realizes that if the heroine had truly struck with intent, his master wouldn't be alive today. In this moment, the servant understands he made a grave error by underestimating the situation. But Krab interrupts, saying the past is behind them, and thanks his servant once more. Dominic remains silent, processing everything. He reflects that his master isn't naive. Everything he does carries meaning. That's why, no matter how difficult the path, he's happy as long as his lord is content. 3 years later, we see Krab congratulating Troy and Riley for becoming heroes. The couple thanks him warmly but doesn't recognize him, asking if he happens to know their master. The man suggests they put away the gifts so they can talk properly. The duo marvels at the fruits he's brought. The woman suddenly recognizes him from years ago and asks angrily how he found her and what he wants. Dominic interjects, asking the heroine to pretend she knows him. He won't do anything unnecessary. With a bored expression, she asks if he even knows why he's there himself. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a demon complains of a splitting headache, wondering why he's in the human world. He has fleeting visions of someone with green hair, but the pain intensifies, forcing him to abandon his thoughts. We see a wounded hero struggling to report something urgent, but a cunning demon shows no mercy. The green-haired being appears, furious about what they've done to his friend, staring intently at the hero. But the creature attacks from behind, mocking the man's slow reaction. Blood splatters everywhere from the precise strike. The patrolman collapses, completely finished after the demon's surprise attack, telling the fallen man he should feel lucky wasted her time with him. The demonic being surveys the area. He wonders aloud if there's anything pretty around for him to have some fun with. We see Riley looking terrified. It's revealed that Troy, Riley, and the heroine Bly all live together in this house. Ever since Hethra, a supposed colleague of Bly's, visited them, the atmosphere has been unbearably tense. The heroine radiates an extremely dark aura, her menacing gaze fixed on the visitor. Meanwhile, the mysterious man maintains his carefree, happy smile. A battle of wills unfolds between them, leaving the students caught in the crossfire. Troy realizes the house feels like a vacuum. The two obviously despise each other. Riley also feels the pressure, describing it like slowly sinking underwater. The servant compares the suffocating situation to watching a friend caught between feuding parents. The scene highlights the stark contrast between the Demon King's relaxed demeanor and the heroine's hostile performance. Troy can't stand the silence any longer and breaks the ice with a forced cough. He questions the visitor about being his master's colleague, mentioning she never spoke of anyone. The man replies that Bly has her secrets, and she used to boast about her students, which leaves Troy incredulous. With a mischievous smile, the visitor asks if the hero has ever considered changing his hairstyle. The boy is completely shocked, speechless at the sudden suggestion. While the master grows suspicious, the man suggests a new look to celebrate becoming a hero. He then shifts the responsibility to Riley, who's surprised to be pulled into the conversation. The girl admits his hair might look messy, but she doesn't think it needs changing. However, she blushes and adds that a change might not be bad either, leaving Troy stunned. Observes the scene from afar, finding the whole situation quite irritating. The hero says he needs time to think, but the visitor insists he should get his haircut right now. To convince him, the man produces a wad of money for the haircut. Troy immediately grabs the cash and runs off, saying he'll be right back. He calls out asking what hairstyle to get, and the man simply tells him to come back more handsome. The servant reflects that the goal was to separate them. Even heroes are motivated by money. The visitor turns to the heroine and comments that apparently he didn't come to attack them. The woman stares at him seriously, demanding to know the real reason for his visit. The man gives a sinister smile, saying she's making him want to curse her. The heroine becomes furious as the visitor talks about secrets, claiming everyone has their own. He raises 2 fingers, saying he'll reveal 2 things. The woman threatens him immediately. The man announces that his first objective, separating the duo, has already been completed. Just then, an alert sounds about a clever demon nearby, leaving the woman shocked. The call comes from a bracelet, asking any hero in the area to respond immediately. Riley sees the location is close and says goodbye to her master, promising she'll be right back. The woman suddenly realizes the mysterious visitor's plan is actually to target her student. She tries to stop the girl, saying Troy should have gone first, but then she notices something. It turns out the hero forgot his communication ring on the table when he left. The master becomes furious. A hero walking without their ring is a serious violation of conduct, but she knows her student wouldn't be so careless and realizes something is wrong. The visitor praises the heroine's competence as the servant feels pressured by her intense gaze. In a flashback, we see Troy asking the servant to hold his fruit basket. The young hero looks confused for a moment, not quite understanding what's happening. His partner asks what's wrong, and he says he felt a chill, thinking his ring had fallen off. The servant reflects that he only needed to focus on Riley, but had to deal with the boy too. It's revealed that Dominic took the hero's ring, thinking the boy has grown a little. Riley runs off, determined to fulfill her heroic mission and help people. A warning indicates that the heroine will arrive soon, and the man calls his servant to go as well. But when the apprentice agrees, the visitor suddenly stops him, leaving the boy frightened. The heroine draws a line on the ground and tells the mysterious man not to cross it. The visitor looks confused, asking what she means by that gesture. The woman stares at him in silence with a very serious and determined expression. She sighs, looking exhausted by the entire situation with the demon. Next, the heroine takes a deep breath, preparing to reveal her true power. With a powerful red aura radiating from her body, she warns him not to cross the line she drew. The lord and his servant are terrified by the pressure, finding her display brutal. The apprentice immediately realizes this isn't just a simple warning from the heroine. The woman declares that he should know when someone is being a complete idiot. Full of rage, she orders the mysterious man to disappear from her sight immediately. Seeing that the visitor has vanished, she comments that at least he obeys in that regard. She calms down and thinks about Sweets, servant, completely exhausted, who says he feels terrible. The master praises his apprentice for enduring it, comparing her power to that of One Piece. The lord apologizes, admitting he didn't expect such intense, murderous intent from her. He tells his servant to compose himself because they need a report on Riley's situation. The master also tells the apprentice he's allowed to curse him mentally only 10 times. Elsewhere, a demon with tentacles explains that he just wants to return to his kingdom, but he changes his tone and tells the human to drop an object that seems very expensive. The creature threatens him, demanding to know what's so important about that item. A demonic creature named Tento stands before a wounded man on the ground while another person is tied up. The monster says he's a little disappointed because his opponent isn't a woman. Suddenly, a white-haired girl runs toward him, introducing herself as the heroine Riley. The demon notices the arrival of the new opponent and becomes alert. The heroine reports that there are 2 injured civilians and requests immediate medical support at the location. The creature gets super excited, realizing that finally a woman has appeared for the fight. Without wasting time, the monster advances with its tentacles toward the girl, but the heroine remains unfazed and uses her own ink ability to defend against the attack. She creates a sword with her magic and easily blocks the creature's strikes. The demon is surprised to see its tentacles were cut without any difficulty. The creature wonders what just happened. The girl stands still with her sword, questioning why he's so surprised. Immediately after, the heroine demands to know the true identity of this being. She stares at him with a serious look, ready for anything. Suddenly, in the demon's reflection, we see a man who praises the girl for her excellent performance. This mysterious figure reveals he prepared all this just to test Riley's growth. He challenges her to prove she truly has the talent to become his rival. Returning to the fight, the demon seems to be controlled by that mysterious man. Riley understands this is her debut match and she needs to give her best. The scene cuts to a calm forest with a blue and peaceful sky. The forest trembles with the impact of the battle, and the monster shouts, asking why she's running away. He questions her because her mission was to capture him, so retreating makes no sense. The heroine, however, isn't running away. She prepares for combat with her sword in hand, dodging the attacks. The girl advances while the creature desperately begs to hear her voice. The demon screams in pain with each blow he receives, but the heroine doesn't stop attacking for a second. He provokes her, saying if she continues in silence, he'll have no choice but to do something worse. At this moment, the monster threatens that the only voice he'll hear from her will be her death scream. With that, the creature launches a gigantic spinning attack using its tentacle toward the girl. The heroine, however, is not intimidated and uses her special technique called Ink Realm to defend herself. The demon provokes her, saying she's weak and couldn't even cut one of his tentacles. Soon after, we see a cut in a tree that suddenly begins to open slowly. Surprisingly, that simple cut transforms into a glowing red eye before everyone. Impressed with the girl's talent and growth, he enjoys the confrontation as if watching a movie and asks for Dominic's opinion. Unlike him, Dominic seems to be suffering greatly from the whole situation. Back to the combat. The demon seems confused and can't understand what's happening. He realizes he's ended up in a completely unknown place because he was too focused on the fight. With that, the heroine informs her new location and says she will finish the man watching everything realizes she can't cut the tentacles, but she's excellent at dodging. The monster grows irritated, wondering who she is since she only talks to the bracelet. The creature then remembers the bracelet on the girl's arm and begins to understand the situation. He realizes that such a skilled person couldn't have appeared out of nowhere. She must belong to a group. With a snap of his fingers, the monster finally deduces she's a heroine because of that accessory. The demon then begins telling stories of how he defeated other heroes who wore the same item. The white-haired girl remains silent, listening carefully to every word her enemy says. The man watching the fight complains that the demon is stalling too much and that he doesn't care about that. He asks Dominic to skip that part of the story, but the boy replies he can't because it's live. The Lord tells Dominic he talks too much, leaving him completely shocked by the response. Back to the fight. The heroine says the same thing to the monster, who doesn't understand. She repeats that he talks too much and is obviously trying to buy time with idle chatter. The girl reveals she lured him into the forest on purpose so his tentacles would get stuck. We see the monster's tentacles on the ground, and she asks if he needed time to get unstuck. The heroine then declares that in his current state, she's confident she won't lose the fight. The creature grows irritated and challenges her to fight all its tentacles at once. The demon spits on the ground and starts laughing loud, long, and terrifying. He mocks the girl, and the man watching everything becomes irritated by the sound of the laughter. The creature reveals that everything was just an act and that he fell for her strategy on purpose. The monster can't believe he was playing games with someone of her level, calling her naive. Suddenly, a tentacle emerges from the ground and traps the girl's leg, leaving her completely surprised. The demon mocks her, saying that's a real strategy and that he got her good. He wonders aloud why he's so happy to have caught such a small fish. The monster tells the girl not to stare because the tentacle won't let go. The creature orders her to stay still and let his tentacles attack her mercilessly. Then the monster decides to grant the girl's wish and unleashes the full power of his tentacles. A gigantic wave of tentacles advances and he challenges her to block the attack. The man watching everything finds it strange. This provocation isn't Riley's style. He expected a battle based on talent and asks Dominic's opinion on the situation. Dominic agrees, saying this kind of plan isn't the heroine's style, and he would know. He also mentions that ever since he recruited Tento as an opponent, he's been thinking about something. The boy explains that although the plan doesn't seem like hers, Tento's level is too low for this kind of strategy. But suddenly, the heroine uses her sword and easily cuts the tentacle that was holding her leg. Through the reflection in the creature's eye, we see the scene, and he wonders how she managed to cut it. He's confused because she didn't make any suspicious movements, and the cut was the same as the others. Then the creature finally realizes the answer was extremely simple. This was a move the arrogant Tento did not consider Riley's true strategy. The truth is, it wasn't that she couldn't cut the tentacles she didn't want to. The demon understands. She deliberately lured him so he would use all his power at once. He needs to retract his tentacles now, but the girl has already activated her ink realm. With her ability activated, the heroine cuts all the tentacles in the air without any difficulty. The girl then lands in front of the monster, who is now severely wounded and without his tentacles. The monster grows furious and calls the heroine brat, but he can't do anything against her. The white-haired girl stares at him with a serious look, and her eyes glow with immense power. A narration explains that Tento's first ability is to harden his tentacles. Because of this, he can switch between offense and defense and judge his opponent's strength. After the first attack, he felt the girl attempt several other blows against him. With that, he was certain the heroine wouldn't be able to cut his tentacles at all. The creature, however, was completely mistaken and can't believe what he's seeing. Riley advances with a giant ink scythe toward her enemy to finish the fight. The demon curses her as a coward but has no time to react to the approaching attack. He tries to calm down to make a quick decision before it's too late. Even with a short distance, he considers attacking with his remaining tentacles, but she's faster. The monster wonders if he's crazy. He can barely defend himself from her attacks. Suddenly, a flash of light blinds his vision, and he's completely paralyzed with fear. The demon feels the next attack will be the final blow and prepares for the worst. He can't keep up with her movements, so he decides to trust his instincts to survive. The creature manages to predict that the heroine's target is the right side of his neck. With that, he prepares to deflect the final blow and attempt a counterattack. Riley, however, surprises him with a horizontal cut and reports that the situation has been resolved. She says there are no more details and that she'll wait for the body disposal team to arrive. We see the demon completely defeated with a huge cut across his chest. The heroine finishes her report, stating that the subjugation has been completed. The victory is hers. The man who is observing everything seems thoughtful as he analyzes the girl's performance in battle. He then smiles and says the fight was fun enough, giving it a score of 9.8 out of 10. His servant Dominic is surprised by the score and asks the reason for the 0.2-point deduction. The Lord explains it was because he wanted caramel popcorn, and his servant gets angry at the excuse. Krad then says it's good he understood, and that next time he should do better. The poor fellow tries to stay calm, telling himself he needs to endure because he's the weakest there. Suddenly, Krab, who is eating popcorn, seems to sense something and goes on high alert. A mysterious figure appears out of nowhere and stares at the Lord with a very serious and intimidating look. With a sinister smile, Krab tells Dominic not to cut the transmission because the work isn't over yet. Returning to the heroine, she seems to feel a strange presence and looks at her own hand. The girl is confused, wondering if the battle hadn't really ended. Suddenly, a woman with red eyes appears and asks if Riley isn't tired. The girl gets scared and asks if her master is okay because she seems more tired than usual. The master stretches and says Riley is the only one who cares about her and that her life is exhausting. The heroine doesn't quite understand what she means and ends up eating one of the sticks she offered. Suddenly, the master freaks out and asks why she ate that, leaving the girl confused with a scary face. The woman then reveals she had put poison on the stick on purpose. We see a memory of the master offering the sweet to her apprentice with a smile. Riley gets all embarrassed, saying she wouldn't fall for that, but in fact, she fell for it perfectly. The master begins to tell what she wants from the girl, who looks surprised with wide eyes, but she only offers a snack and says she's better when she doesn't suspect everything. With that, the woman says Riley doesn't use her talent because of the influence of a guy named Troy. With a serious look, the master stares at the gray-haired girl with her glowing red eyes. Then she advises the apprentice to relax, because sometimes the simpler approach works better. The girl becomes thoughtful about the advice, but didn't expect such a silly provocation to work. She wonders what direction the master was talking about wasn't a quick attack easier. At this moment, the man asks Dominic if he can control the tentacles of a body. Seeing that everything is ready, the master gives a signal to start and tells Dominic to attack with full force. Quickly, the tentacle is shot like an arrow toward the light-haired girl. The attack zips past her, showing the speed and power of that blow. The apprentice stands still, thinking about what just happened, but can't understand the lesson. She thinks that if she asks Troy, she might finally understand what happened there. But the master notices her thoughts and says that since they brought it up, she has something to say. She simply tells Riley to find another guy, the world is full of men, and she's better than Troy. The girl is in shock, looking like she's about to break, while her master says she's too good for him. With that, the apprentice explodes in anger, shouting and asking what's wrong with the boy she likes. Looking at the moon, the woman complains that her student is abandoning her to side with Troy. Riley retorts that she insulted him first, and that Troy is handsome and kind. So her master hugs her. After apologizing, she comments on how dense Troy is and that probably nothing will ever happen. Then the master says that one day when the girl's in danger, she wants to see something. She wonders if Troy would appear like a prince to save her from any trouble. At this moment, the tentacle attacks and throws the apprentice far away with absurd force. But a young man appears out of nowhere in front of her and defends the attack with his sword. With that, the young man manages to stop the blow and kneels on the ground. Recovering, the boy calls for Riley, and she blushes, seeing that he came to save her. Worried about the situation, the young man asks if the light-haired girl is okay. The master laughs maniacally. Celebrating because his plan had worked perfectly. Elsewhere, we see Troy eating a skewer and thinking about the demon that appeared. He comments that it was far away, so he ignored it, but now he considers going to check the situation. The young man thinks someone must have already resolved the problem and continues eating calmly until he realizes the location of the confusion was near his house and gets very scared. With that, he looks at his hand and sees his notification ring is gone because it was fake. Desperate, the young man starts running down the street, shouting for the portal to appear soon. With wide eyes of panic, he runs as fast as he can to arrive in time. Upon arriving at the location, the young man sees Riley's back and calls her, relieved that she's safe. He breathes a sigh of relief, thinking the girl took care of everything and that the creature on the ground was the demon. However, the tentacle on the ground suddenly moves toward the distracted apprentice. The boy's expression changes, and black ink begins to emerge from his hand, ready to fight. The young man throws the food bag on the ground so he can move faster and act. He advances with his sword in hand to protect the girl from the imminent danger. With a quick movement, but the young man successfully protects the girl. The young woman is speechless, hand over her mouth, completely red, seeing what just happened. The swordsman turns to her and asks worriedly if she's okay after the scare. Far away, the master was eating popcorn when she suddenly tasted something different from caramel. The man and his assistant were watching the whole scene as if it were a movie. With that, the master pokes his helper and asks him to explain the reason for the change in flavor. The demon turns to his boss and asks why the popcorn tastes like caramel. Then the master shouts that it was because Troy's rescue was so sweet and romantic to watch. While the man celebrates excitedly, his assistant seems completely tired of the situation. The helper replies that it's because he loves it, looking exhausted both physically and mentally. A transition shows that everything was part of the Demon King's plan and the hero's performance. A few days later, the master is relaxing the forest and says she understood what happened. She asks the boy why he's bringing up a topic from days ago. Now, in front of her, the young man is kneeling on the ground sweating while the girl watches him awkwardly. The young man says she seemed unwell, so he decided to confess and apologize for his mistake. He explains it's his fault for having left his ring behind, and the woman understands everything. He says he'll accept any punishment, and Riley tries to defend him, but the master seems serious. The woman comments that she's never seen Troy without his ring before, then questions him about his hair. Scared, the young man misunderstands everything and offers to give his own head as punishment, but the master just hits him on the head and he screams in pain, not understanding anything. She then asks why his hair is still the same since he said he would cut it. The young man explains he used the money to buy snacks and that things got confusing along the way. With that, the woman says it's okay and strokes the boy's head, surprising him. She tells him to be more careful and calls the two to leave, leaving the young man confused. The boy asks if he survived, and the apprentice congratulates him while the master says it wasn't his fault. She explains he's not the type to forget his ring, so the whole situation was very strange. And to make matters worse, a demon appeared where they rarely show up, which raises suspicions. The master concludes all this was someone else's fault and not a simple accident. With a furious look, she asks someone if that person has finished their business there and says the break is over, he wants to continue Troy's training. The woman gives a sinister smile and reminds the man she had already given him a warning, but the guy just returns the smile and asks, "So what?" showing he's not afraid of her. At another moment, introducing himself as a former colleague of the master. Troy is shocked that his mentor had another close colleague and asks why she never told him. The woman complains she also didn't know she had so many colleagues, and that's why her coffee was bitter. Asks Kuro to leave so the children can rest, and he realizes he arrived at the wrong time. Kuro says he was going to give the disciples special training, and the tearful woman asks him to wait. With that, the young man gets excited about the idea of training and asks if it can fix his bad habits. The black-haired man smiles and says he can transform him from a foolish bear into a human. With a confident look, he extends his hand to the boy, offering help with his training. The young man makes a funny face, but the narrator confirms this is exactly what was going to happen. Since Troy is very hardworking, he wouldn't refuse the offer, and his master had to go along to supervise. After some time, we return to the present with woman observing the training, complains about the way the man talks, and asks what he reads so much. The master then gets irritated and asks why he keeps approaching her students. During the training, the instructor warns he's not fighting for real yet, but he can change tactics. The man calls his student's attention, who seems to be having a little difficulty. The boy replies nervously while defending himself from the attacks with a wooden stick. With that, the training is paused because the instructor says it's time for an intermediate evaluation. The young man is shocked to hear that the result of his evaluation was simply impossible. The man explains that the young man's body freezes before delivering a strong blow, and this hinders everything. The apprentice apologizes, and the instructor says he understands it's normal to be afraid of hurting someone. But in fact, everything is complete, and now only one thing is missing for the man's plan to work. He then asks if demons appear nearby, and the master has a bad feeling about it. With that, the narrator says the heroine is falling for the bait, and the man's plan is working. The apprentice replies that a demon appeared there recently, surprising everyone. The instructor suggests that everyone patrol the area the apprentice mentioned, irritating the master. The woman remains silent with an unfriendly face, showing she didn't like the idea. Suddenly, her expression changes to one of shock and surprise at what she's seeing. The whole group hides in the bushes and is left open-mouthed by the incredible coincidence that occurred. Unexpectedly, a huge demon appears at the location and seems completely lost and confused. The creature looks around sweating, trying to understand what's happening and where it ended up. The monster named Robinette realizes it's in the human world and prepares for whatever comes. Then, the instructor suggests that Troy handle the demon alone to gain combat experience. He comments it would be good for the young man to develop his skills just like his colleague did. He gives a malicious smile and says they never disappoint him. With that, the young man prepares for battle, holding his sword and says he will do his best.